In 16th century North Africa, the English mercenary Solomon led his crew into a desperate battle against Ottoman forces that had seized control of a town. Streets echoed with the clash of steel as Solomon, renowned for his prowess, cut through enemy lines mercilessly. Their goal was the castle, but as they approached, defenders slammed shut the gates in a desperate bid to hold them off. Undeterred, Solomon's crew blasted their way through, sending splinters flying and flames licking the walls. Solomon, a grim figure amidst the chaos, interrogated a wounded soldier for the throne room's location, then silenced him forever. Inside the throne room awaited an unexpected challenge, a ring of mirrors, sinister and foreboding. As the crew cautiously advanced, demonic figures emerged from the glass, snatching warriors and dragging them into the mirror's depths. Terror gripped the survivors, but Solomon, driven by greed or courage, shot down a deserter and pressed on. Just as morale teetered on the brink, a hidden door swung open, revealing the throne itself. Solomon surged forward, only for the door to slam shut behind him, trapping his comrades outside. Ignoring eerie sounds echoing through the chamber, Solomon focused on the treasure. Nearby, the king's corpse grew cold, breath frosting the air, a chilling testament to the supernatural forces at play. As a chill settled over the room, shadows slithered out from the stone figures, encircling Solomon. In a sudden convergence, they coalesced around the throne, revealing a demonic figure known as the Devil's Reaper. With a malevolent strike of power, the Reaper cast Solomon to his knees, accusing him of a life steeped in murder and avarice. Another blow silenced Solomon's protest, and the Reaper conjured a blazing sword, intent on claiming Solomon's soul. Summoning resolve, Solomon parried the Reaper's assault with his own blades, defiantly declaring he was not yet destined for damnation. Evading the Reaper's relentless onslaught, he leaped through a window to freedom. A year later, in England, Solomon sought redemption within the sanctity of a monastery. Having forsaken violence, he devoted his riches to the church, adorned his quarters with cryptic wards, and adorned himself with protective tattoos against demonic forces. One fateful afternoon, a priest revealed unsettling omens. Since Solomon's arrival, a dark shadow had loomed over the monastery, and prophetic dreams foretold his departure. Distraught, Solomon left, directionless and haunted by uncertainty. Solomon wandered aimlessly through the wintry countryside, witnessing the bleakest sights, plague doctors incinerating the infected, and townspeople hanged in grim rows as punishment. One day, a cart carrying the Crowthorne family passed by, offering him a ride, but Solomon declined. Later, as he rested, he heard whispering. Suddenly, a man with a knife seized him from behind. Two more men emerged, striking Solomon before rifling through his bag, only to find no money. Discovering papers filled with strange symbols, they assumed he was a sorcerer and dragged him toward the fire, intent on burning him like a witch. Solomon resisted but didn't fight back, enduring their blows until he lost consciousness. A flashback unfolded, revealing Solomon's past as the second son of a noble lord. Expected to become a priest while his brother Marcus inherited their father's lands, Solomon defied his destiny and fled, prompting his father to disinherit him. The memory of the Reaper intruded, jolting Solomon awake in the Crowthorne's cart. The family assured him of his safety, and soon they stopped to camp for the night. Solomon, though in need of rest, didn't want to seem rude and offered to help. He first washed up, noticing the children's curious gazes fixed on his tattoos. Later, during dinner, he shared tales of the various people who had hired his crew for battles. Meredith, the daughter, found the stories thrilling, but her older brother scolded her for glorifying violence. Their father, William, mentioned his own past in the Queen's army before finding faith. While killing had been hard for William, Solomon confessed it had always come easy to him. That night, Solomon dreamed of his childhood. He recalled the day he left his father's lands, discovering Marcus, his brother, attempting to take advantage of a girl. When Solomon tried to intervene, Marcus overpowered him, slashing his cheek. Marcus dragged Solomon to the edge of a cliff, telling him to leave. But when Solomon pushed back, Marcus tripped over a rock and plummeted off the cliff. Awakening from the dream, Solomon joined William by the fire. William showed him a locket with pictures of his wife and daughter, explaining that his family planned to sail to the New World to start anew. He invited Solomon to join them, but Solomon, believing his soul to be damned, declined. For the next few days, Solomon traveled with the Crowthornes. Meredith made him new clothes, and one afternoon, her younger brother Samuel asked Solomon to teach him some sword moves. Solomon obliged, giving Samuel basic training with sticks. As they traveled, the group stumbled upon a charred town. Deciding to investigate, they were met with the gruesome sight of bodies, their eyes burned out. William blamed the devil, but Solomon found a pyre and realized the townspeople had failed to burn a witch. Amid the grim scene, Meredith spotted movement and discovered a girl alive among the corpses. They brought the child back to their camp, where she confirmed that the townspeople had tried to burn a witch, but the flames had not harmed her. In retaliation, the witch had killed the locals and burned their eyes for witnessing her execution. The Crowthorns wanted to pray for the dead, but the girl furiously refused, raising Solomon's suspicions. Taking a cross from the family, he offered it to the girl. She turned to Meredith, saying, "It's you we want." The girl revealed herself to be the witch, marking Meredith's hand with a strange symbol before her eyes transformed. She lunged at Solomon. Solomon managed to push her off, and the witch revealed her true form. She transformed into a flock of birds and escaped. Meanwhile, in a nearby town, a violent cult led by the sorcerer Malachi was terrorizing the locals, capturing them and locking them in cages for their sinister master. They were led by the masked rider, who bestowed power upon his followers by touching their faces, leaving burn marks and altering their eyes. Meanwhile, the Crowthorns set up camp, and Solomon inspected the mark on Meredith's hand, but its meaning eluded him. That evening, Samuel woke Solomon, having heard strange noises. Investigating, Solomon discovered Malachi's cult abducting more people. With Solomon away, the cultists easily surrounded the camp and overpowered William, who failed to defend his family. They noticed the mark on Meredith's hand and declared her the one, a proclamation the masked rider endorsed. Solomon returned just as Samuel pleaded with him to kill the cultists. Instead, Solomon attempted to negotiate for the family's freedom. The masked rider used his magic to speak through one of his men, demanding Solomon to kill him. Solomon, committed to his vow of peace, refused. In response, the thug immediately killed Samuel. Devastated and enraged, Solomon renounced his oath of peace, declaring he would gladly embrace damnation to kill such monsters. In a fury, Solomon launched himself at Samuel's killer, disarming him with ease and driving the knife into the man's own flesh. As some cultists tried to fight him, others dragged Meredith away. William attempted to intervene but was swiftly stabbed by two men, and his older son soon fell as well. Enraged beyond measure, Solomon decapitated another cultist and continued his rampage, slaying any who dared to oppose him. Amid the chaos, the masked rider and the majority of his followers escaped on horseback with Meredith. By the time Solomon noticed, it was too late to pursue them. Afterward, Solomon checked on William, who, with his dying breath, made Solomon swear to rescue Meredith, promising that in doing so, Solomon's soul would also be saved. William then passed away, and his grieving wife handed Solomon the locket to aid in his search. Equipped with weapons and a horse taken from the cultists, Solomon noticed the dark power dissipating from their bodies as he departed. Riding through the forest, he was ambushed by more cultists, but he swiftly dispatched them with two simultaneous shots from his guns. Catching up to a group on the road, Solomon skillfully eliminated the remaining cultists with precise strikes of his sword. Reaching a cage of captives, Solomon showed them the locket and asked about Meredith, but none had seen her. Meanwhile, a few miles away, the cultists continued their rampage, raiding and burning another town. Meredith, trapped in a cage, urged the other victims to stay calm as the masked rider watched over them. 3 days later, Solomon encountered a stream of displaced people fleeing yet another destroyed town. He decided to ride to the ruins and rest in an abandoned church. While praying, he was startled by a sudden noise and drew his sword, only to find it was Father Michael, who had remained in his church despite the chaos. Father Michael recounted the horrors he had witnessed, confirming the cultists had ravaged the area. He explained that their master, Malachi, was a servant of the devil, hiding in his castle and never seen by anyone. The cultists' victims were either turned into soldiers or enslaved, depending on their strength. Suddenly, a noise interrupted them, and Michael revealed a hidden hatch leading to an underground chamber filled with ghouls. Solomon was shocked that Michael had not destroyed them, but the priest explained these ghouls were once his parishioners, transformed by Malachi's curse. Michael couldn't bring himself to kill them, as they were victims of a fate they did not choose. He admitted to feeding them before pushing Solomon into the hole and sealing the hatch. The ghouls immediately surrounded Solomon, preparing to feast on him. Solomon drew his sword and fought back, slaying the ghouls while some fed on their fallen comrades. Using his torch to keep them at bay, he continued the fierce battle. Above, in the church, Father Michael tried to listen to the struggle below, only to be suddenly attacked by an unknown assailant. Down in the tunnel, a ghoul lunged onto Solomon's back. He slammed it against the wall, creating a hole. Shoving the ghoul aside, Solomon widened the hole and made his escape. As he dashed through the narrow passage, the ghouls pursued him. He used his torch to ward them off and scattered debris to block their path. Nearing the exit, a ghoul attacked, but Solomon dispatched it in seconds. 2 more ghouls appeared, forcing Solomon to break through the wooden exit and emerge into the moonlight. The light burned the ghouls, driving them back underground. Above ground, Solomon was confronted by the thieves he had encountered earlier. They dropped Michael's severed head, revealing they had allied with Malachi and now wielded dark powers. However, they were inexperienced with their newfound abilities, and Solomon easily defeated them one by one. He grabbed one of the thieves, threatening to throw him to the ghouls while showing him a picture of Meredith, demanding her location. The thief claimed the girl was dead, causing Solomon to lose control and strike him before letting the ghouls take him. Later, Solomon arrived in a town and went to a tavern, seeking to drown his sorrows in drink. There he was approached by some members of his old crew who urged him to become their captain again. Solomon refused, feeling he had nothing left to fight for. In the middle of the night, a group of men surprised Solomon while he slept and captured him. The following morning dawned with the grim spectacle of 2 men crucified for defying Malachi, overseen by the chilling presence of the masked rider. Solomon was soon brought forward, and without protest, he faced the rider's command to be crucified as well, silently accepting what he believed he deserved. As consciousness slipped away, the masked rider departed with his entourage, trailing a caravan carrying slave cages, among which Meredith was discovered safe and unharmed. Spotting Solomon on the cross, Meredith's desperate cries roused him from his stupor, pushing Solomon to wrench his hands from the nails and free himself, collapsing to the ground. Cultists closed in, poised to strike, only for Solomon's former crew to appear suddenly, swiftly overpowering and defeating them. That evening, Solomon awoke in a hideout, tended to by a healer. He gruffly dismissed her aide, inspecting the scars left by the nails and confirming his hands were functional. Solomon began packing to depart, but his crew advised waiting until fully healed. His frustration boiled over, but they assured him of their commitment to aiding him in his fight against Malachi. Over dinner, the crew shared more about Malachi's sinister past. Once a priest and healer, he had bartered his soul for power from the devil. Rumors spoke of the masked rider, his face concealed under the mask, executing Malachi's commands without question. Solomon asserted they must eliminate the rider first to expose Malachi's vulnerability. Learning that Exmouth Castle served as their enemy's stronghold shocked Solomon, for it was his childhood home. Discovering the lord of the castle has died only fueled Solomon's thirst for vengeance, prompting him to rally his crew and prepare for the impending battle. Sometime later, Solomon and his crew infiltrated the castle grounds through a hidden tunnel he remembered from childhood. From a balcony above, the witch reappeared, hurling a skull just as Solomon threw his sword, striking her down. The skull shattered, setting off an alarm that summoned hordes of cultists into battle. Amidst the chaos of death and fighting, the masked rider emerged, methodically taking down Solomon's crew. Solomon rushed to confront the rider, urging his men to flee and hide, knowing they couldn't win this fight. As the crew dispersed, Solomon engaged the rider in combat, eventually being pushed back. Seizing an opportunity, Solomon locked himself behind a door to evade pursuit. He then stealthily navigated the corridors, evading cultists as he made his way to the dungeon. Arriving at the dungeon, Solomon prepared to free the slaves when a cultist ambushed him. Dispatching the enemy swiftly, Solomon used the keys to unlock all the cells. However, Meredith was not among the prisoners. One man remained, whom Solomon discovered to his shock was his father. Desperate, Solomon attempted to break the chains, but his father explained they were enchanted with dark magic and could not be broken. In a moment of revelation, Solomon apologized for believing Marcus was dead. His father disclosed that Marcus had survived the fall but remained unconscious, baffling doctors and priests. Desperate for a solution, Solomon's father had sought the help of a sorcerer. Marcus had indeed awakened, but he had fallen under the sway of darkness, obedient only to the sorcerer's commands. His facial injuries were severe, prompting him to conceal his face behind a mask. Unbeknownst to Solomon until now, Marcus was the masked rider, brought back to life by Malachi, who had taken the Lord's fortune as payment. Overwhelmed with guilt, their father took Solomon's gun and tearfully asked for release. In a heartbreaking moment, Solomon reluctantly ended his suffering with a single shot. Meanwhile, in another tunnel, Solomon's crew fought desperately against the advancing cultists, using fire and crossbows to hold them back. Just in time, Solomon arrived, swiftly dispatching an enemy. He implored his crew to buy him a few precious moments to bring an end to the conflict once and for all. He pounded on the closed doors of the throne room, a horde of cultists appearing behind him. Before they could attack, the doors swung open. Solomon rushed inside and found Meredith imprisoned in a cage, warning him of the trap. Malachi, seated on the throne, taunted Solomon before vanishing with magic. Solomon decided to free Meredith, despite her warnings that she was bait to lure him back to the castle. Suddenly, the masked rider stabbed Solomon in the shoulder, hurling him to the ground and initiating a fierce duel. Refusing to fight his own brother, Solomon tried reasoning with Marcus, but he persisted in attacking. Both were skilled swordsmen, their blades clashing without either landing a decisive blow as they traversed the room. In the midst of their battle, Meredith seized the opportunity to escape from her cage and hide. Malachi reappeared, unveiling a massive mirror containing a monstrous demon. With desperation mounting, Solomon continued battling Marcus, finally managing to wound him. When Marcus grasped Solomon by the neck, Solomon tore off the mask, revealing Marcus's disfigured face. He continued to attack. Solomon set Marcus ablaze with a torch and swiftly ended his life. Malachi grabbed Meredith and used her blood to summon the demon from the mirror. Solomon, dodging the beast's lumbering attacks, confronted Malachi, offering his soul in exchange for Meredith's safety. Malachi, disbelieving, moved to kill Meredith, but in a split second, Solomon shot him in the head. Malachi fell into the mirror, pulling the demon back with him, and Solomon collapsed. Meredith rushed to Solomon's side, fearing he was dead, but Solomon suddenly awakened. Recalling William's words, he realized he had achieved redemption by saving Meredith. Soon after, the crew arrived and revealed that all the cultists had been defeated, signaling the end of the war. From then on, Solomon traveled across continents, battling monsters and defending the innocent.